Obviously, disappointing result the other night against Spartans, but you've got the chance to bounce back very quickly with the game at the weekend. How important is that for the dressing room, especially with such a young team, with everybody on international duty at the minute, to just get that result out of the system and concentrate on picking up the 3 points on Saturday?
No, the result isn't anything that worries me from the other night. I came away from the game with the players and thought they'll definitely learn from that. I thought it was a great experience. The style of play that Spartans brought was something they probably haven't seen too much of in youth team football. So the last 2 days have been about recovery and a bit of reflection today. So I'm quite comfortable coming out the other night that the players will have learned and will be better players for it. So Saturday is another test that'll be different, but I've no worries over the result from the other night having a negative impact on the players.
All the best, obviously, for Saturday, Darren.
Thank you.
It's been a really good week for Toby Yew. Obviously, he signed from Spurs a couple of years ago and signed a contract extension just this summer. Have you got high hopes for him, maybe making into a break into the first team anytime soon? And has he had much playing time, or has he had much time working with Joe Hart? Because I know Joe Hart has expressed an interest previously of working with the younger players at the club.
Yeah, well, firstly, Toby is doing really well. He came in, as you said, a couple of years ago and has taken time to adjust to obviously a new style of football, but more importantly, a new life. And now, in the last, I saw Toby off the back end of last season with the under-18s. There was a marked improvement in him. And he's in a really good place at the minute, and that's obviously been reflected with recognition he's had in the first team, and I'd imagine that recognition will keep coming as long as he keeps his feet in the ground and keeps working the way he is at the minute. And touching on Joe Hart, well, I hope he gets to work with Joe Hart, because there's a fantastic example to all the young goalkeepers here of a brilliant professional. Obviously has been at the highest end of the game and is, forgive me, I don't know his exact age, but he's certainly he was doing better than me anyway, because I think he's older than me and still going very strong. So I hope he gets to work with them as much as he can and takes as much information from someone like that. So Toby's chance will come, I'm sure of it, but that's down to Toby at the minute. He's certainly doing very well.
Hi Dan. Dan, obviously the ultimate goal is to develop players who graduate to the first team and hopefully play their part in the longer term future at Celtic. And on that note, as with previous regimes, do you try and ensure that you guys set up tactically in a similar way to the first team? So I'm thinking, the obvious things that Ange does in terms of inverted fullbacks, etc.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So the whole youth academy, if you like, the amount it filters down probably dilutes the level you go down. So we're obviously the direct team just below. So how we play and the style of play is very much aligned to the first team and how the manager wants, and that's fantastic for myself personally, just as a young coach, getting the access to the manager and seeing how he works and the way he likes things done. But I think it's instrumental in making the transition from B team to first team more seamless, that they're hearing this consistent messages, that if they do step up, they understand what the manager wants. So I would suggest the B team is very much aligned. The 18s will have a very good grasp on it, and then as you go down the ages, then it's more about just holistic player development. So to answer your question, absolutely, we try to align as best as we can with the first team. Obviously, the manager is new into the club, has been in what we're talking about 5 months, so it's on us as coaches to take on as much information as possible and filter that down.
What's the Colt team's remit for this season in the Lowland League? Has there been any pressure to kind of win games, or is this simply about getting these younger players competitive minutes and the results come secondary?
I have no consideration to the team. It's individuals. We will sit at the end of the season and see our players as far on in their development as we wanted them to be, and each individual case is exactly that. It's individual to the player. This league is a facility for the players to develop, to gain more experience against physically very dominant men, if you like. So the remit of the team, there isn't one, because if we were to win the league, it wouldn't mean success for us. And likewise, if we were to be lower down in the league, we might have produced players and pushed players further on development. So the remit is to improve players individually. I would like to think if those players perform to their levels, we'll win games of football. But ultimately, it's about individual player development.
And with no first team football this weekend due to the international break, it's a good chance for the Celtic support to get along and see the B team playing. So what message would you give to the fans and ask them to come along on Sunday?
Well, listen, I don't know how many first team games there are in the season, so I don't think I'll be making many demands to the Celtic support. They're travelling home and away every week, but if they have the time to get down, obviously we'd hope. I suppose you've got a few stars of the future on show. But listen, I'm certainly not going to be making calls out for Celtic fans to get themselves down. It might be a week off for some, because I know how much they support the first team. But yes, there's an opportunity there with no first team game there. So if they could, it'd be great for the young players. But I certainly won't be making any demands.
Darren, just as David touched on there, the international break's ongoing at the minute. Has any of the B team boys had the chance to make that step up to the first team, with some of them being away on international duty and with the training that's going on at Lennoxtown at the moment?
Yeah, that's every week though. That's not dependent on international football. Very, very regularly will the first team go in and take a player off us, and sometimes I've discussed this before. It can happen sometimes just before a session. It can happen sometimes in the middle of a session. So ultimately, for the B team players, when you're part of it, you're directly below the first team. Your opportunity might come at any moment. So it's constantly being in a state of readiness, training right, obviously performing to your highest level. So yes, there is opportunities around the international breaks naturally, but those opportunities are there every day. So I wouldn't say it's more prevalent now that the players are away in international duty than it would be if they weren't.
Darren, I was just to ask, obviously Tony Ralston was awarded last week with a new deal after a lot of folk, myself included, had written him off. What kind of inspiration does that give your group? Obviously Tony's ex-academy, your ex-academy yourself. What kind of inspiration does that give to the young lads in your group, Darren, as to what's possible at Celtic with the right attitude? And
he's a top fella first and foremost, top professional, but I think when you start breaking down Tony's game and the path he's taken, it comes down to deep down a really, really good person that has the right principles and has been brought up right by his family. So I think everyone at the club couldn't be more happy for him. And you talk about earning your stripes, he's done that. And listen, the crux of it is Tony wants to get better, and I think there's more development in him, and certainly under this manager, he's got absolute clarity in what his role is. He's taken it on fantastically well, and he keeps improving week on week. So he's absolutely right. He's an inspirational figure now to the younger players, and hopefully there's more to come.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Now, I'll just get this one in quickly, if that's all right. Darren, you spoke about individuals' performance. So one individual who's certainly been getting a lot of attention is Rocco Vata. How surprised are you how well he's actually fitting in despite his age?
I'm not surprised. I've known Rocco obviously for a while. Naturally, I've obviously been with the 18s for the last 2 seasons, so Rocco was someone that I know really well. He was in obviously the school programme, and someone who I'd brought up with the 18s and played in a couple of games. Rocco's probably most impressive thing about him is his mentality, his attitude to the game. We had a pre-season friendly just off the top of my head this year, and it didn't go particularly well, but he's someone that has a kind of killer attitude that he never stops. Now, he's got a fantastic ability to beat people and to create chances, but he's on top of that got a really strong mind. So he's someone that's very, very young, needs to be managed well, but he's going in the right direction. So it's a case of just supporting him, and I'm confident to say that if he reaches his full potential, which is obviously our goal as a staff to help him do that, that potential could take him to the top, to be fair.